and welcome back to the High Octane Podcast. Yes, we are finally back after taking a week off. Welcome to the show. My name is Zach Woods, and over here is the new crew chief of Martin Truex Jr.'s Daytona 500 entry, Cole Pern. Welcome to the show. I didn't know we had this kind of budget, but I'm glad you're here.
Oh yeah, appreciate you for letting me come on to the show tonight, and yeah, we're gonna have some fun. I guess we had to just play along with it, right? I mean, um, I'll let you do the proper
Oh,
introduction.
goodness gracious. Welcome, everybody. So glad you're here. Cole Pern, Ricky Gonzalez is here for everybody, and I'm so excited to be talking to you guys about Friday Night Fuel. They got a big one this week here at Dover Downs, and these drivers are going to be fighting for an elimination race here at this first stop of their playoff journey. This is the moment where drivers are eliminated and some will move on. We'll talk about that here. As you can see in the rundown above me, we have a couple races to go over. We have Chicagoland and Bristol to recap. We're going to try to get through those as quickly as possible. See some guys up here in the chat. Good to have you here. We're going to talk about some State of the Union things. We are in that season where in America, power is moving from one person, one administration to another. We just had Joe Biden's farewell address. This is sort of a theme of our nation right now. So we're going to give a State of the Union of sorts for Friday Night Fuel. And midway through the show, we're going to take a pit stop and talk about a bunch of NASCAR news. We're going to interview Cole Pern and see how excited he is for teaming up with his old buddy Martin Truex Jr. for the Daytona 500, but there's some other things to talk about as well. And then we're going to take a look forward for Dover. So super excited. Got a jam-packed show with you guys. Ricky, how you feeling going into this one?
Yeah, I'm just glad to be back. We took a week off last week. We had some personal issues that went on, and we're unable to get the recording and stream this. So yeah, very excited to be back with you, my friend. It's been a long time. I know that me and you talk almost on a daily basis, where we're texting, we're sending DMs on Discord, and checking in with one each other, making sure that we're just doing okay and life is all good. So yeah, definitely happy to be back, and yeah, let's get into it. Let's go down the rundown and let's see what we got coming up next.
All right, let's take a look back in time to Friday Night Fuel history and review a race that happened a few weeks ago. So this isn't going to be the most recent of races for Friday Night Fuel, but we weren't here to cover the happenings over at... Are you sure it was Chicagoland? So... Maybe? Yeah, maybe. Now I'm scrambling. I looked at my iRacing app and it said Pocono. Now I'm scrambling. Let's take a look here. Back in schedule. I was so prepared to talk about Chicagoland.
Yeah. I got Chicago.
It is Chicagoland. We did open up the playoffs at Chicagoland. All right, well, I don't have a whole lot of nothing for Chicagoland because on the iRacing Companion app, this is how I cheat everybody. This is the Wizard of Oz pulling back the curtain and showing you. Normally I go through the Companion app and go to leagues, and that's how I stay refreshed on what we have done together. And I guess I can't remember. We must have re-hosted that race, or something went wrong in the setting up of that race, and wound up hosting it outside of the league. But Ricky, I'm going to put you on the spot because, well, I got put on the spot. Talk about Chicagoland. What kind of race unfolded over there to really kick off the playoff season with this round of 12, Chicagoland, Bristol, and then Dover?
Yeah. So Bryce Bohr ended up winning that race. I believe all the ALR guys were eventually in the top 5 at one point in the race, and those guys just dominated. They knew exactly what to do with the setup, know where to put the car on the track, and us at TTR, we kind of struggled. We could not figure this thing out whatsoever. The setup was very, very loose, and I know Till does a really good job of making these sets and making sure that either they're really, really tight or really, really loose, or if you got to muscle the car, this is what you got to do. And and for whatever reason, back in our stable, we just couldn't figure it out. I remember one time we were running almost dead last just because we were trying to save tire at the same time, and those guys were burning their stuffs up. And after the first run, all of our tires in the stable were they were god awful, and we just could not figure it out all night long. There was a particular driver that was just in our voice chat. I remember it just, they'll come back to us. They'll come back to us. They'll eventually come back to us, you know? And so we got halfway through a run, and the guys did start to come back to us, and then eventually we got a caution, and it kind of just ruined the strategy of what we had at TTR. But credit to ALR, they did what they did. They came in, dominated, led laps, led the most laps, and those guys put in the work. Plain and simple, that's what it is. They put in the work, they put in the time to practice, and they went out and whooped everybody's butt. So it is what it is at the end of the day. So kudos to those guys, and Bryce for getting another playoff point for moving on. I know it's not win in advance, but he pretty much solidified himself with winning this race, and then we'll talk about what happened at the next race. And I mean, he's the favorite at this point if he were to continue racing with us, and we'll get into all that stuff later in the show. But that guy's on a hot streak, and I've never seen a driver on a hot streak like he is right now, with winning races and dominating this season as far as win totals go.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I know that the old adage that we talk about all the time, Ricky, is you can't get faster if you don't race with fast guys. So those kinds of folks really push everybody else to learn and to become better. I remember Chicagoland now. That was the loose race car race, and that was the moment where for everybody out there in YouTube land, the guy in the voice chat, that was me. I was that guy. I did that. I remember that. And you know, it's a crazy race when Zach Woods is teaching Ricky Gonzalez how to go fast. So there was a lot of conversation coming out of Chicagoland over setups, and I personally loved it. The car was hard to drive. You just really had to be patient with it, keep the tires underneath you. I found that rolling the bottom was really effective, and just trying to conserve, trying to be easy on the throttle, getting out of the corner. And for me personally, I know a lot of those ALR guys, they rip the fence. They're 100% all the time, and that's not how I race. And so you have this kind of setup that maybe caters to some of the more timid drivers in the league, and it worked out. And yeah, I remember Chicagoland now. That was the crazy setup race, and I loved it. I was a huge fan, and so I know we got some guys that work really hard on our setups and put in a ton of time and ton of work. They don't get enough credit for what they do here, and really excited to continue to work in a league that wants to think creatively about setups, right? There's so many leagues out there that just sort of default to the iRacing setup, and that's fine, but in order to get some variety, some spice in your racecraft, you got to tinker on the thing for a little bit and then ship it out to everybody. So that's what Friday Night Fuel is trying to do, and I really appreciate the effort those guys are bringing into the setups.
Yeah, and before we go on to Bristol, like, shout out to Spencer Teal and James Morris. Those are the guys who work on our setups in this league, and to make sure they are getting the testing. And if Spencer's watching, I mean, he knows how I feel about him. He does everything that we can to make sure this thing is successful. And so Till is a good friend. I consider if I were to go to South Carolina, I know that he's going to get mad at me for getting a hotel and say, no, man, you're staying with us. That's how these friendships are made over stuff like this. And we've had opportunities to meet people in person. And, you know, I know me and Zach, we're trying to plan something where we meet up for a NASCAR race. And, you know, that's what it's all about at the end of the day, right? You can have your internet friends and your real friends that you see every day. And it's cool to see people care about you and see what's going on in your life and check in on you. So, but no, Till and James for sure don't get enough credit for what they do for this league. And Till, again, if you're watching, like, apologies for not being around this season and trying to help you get this thing. Yeah, I'll take 100%.
He's in chat.
Yeah,
no, I'm
so
not pointing at you. I'm pointing over to the chat.
Okay. I'm looking over and seeing if he's here still. But yeah, Till, good work this season. You're doing fantastic. I know we've given you some criticism and constructive feedback, but is to make this thing better, and that's what we're going to strive to do is to make this thing better. And again, we'll get into all that stuff later in the show, and we'll talk about what to expect moving forward.
Yeah, and these guys, you know, they put in a ton of work, and you have setup shops out there that really exist to take people's money, and you know, Teal and Morris, they do such a great job. They're humble guys. They love what they do, and they're really proud of what they come up with for this league every week. And you just love to see the enthusiasm. And so, as a driver, it's good to give that kind of feedback back to those guys and let them know, hey, you're doing a really good job. Let's talk about Bristol, as this race was the second leg of this playoff stretch, and we got to see a little bit of everything at Bristol Motor Speedway. It had 14 cautions in this 300-lap slugfest here at Bristol.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And for anybody out there in YouTube land wondering why that is the way it is, you're looking at him. He's sitting over there. But 14 cautions, and at the end of the day, Bryce Boyer dominates here at Bristol, laps the entire field with a long green flag run to the end, and takes away another victory. Your top five, you have Boyer, and then Ricky, and then you have Teal, Gary Donaldson, and then you also have your brother finishing in the top five as well, Mark Gonzalez. This race had it all, Ricky. What are your takeaways coming out of Bristol?
Oh man, well, there's a lot. We had tempers flaring, people mad at each other. Honestly, dominating, I guess you could say that as well. Dominating fashion, and people not able to figure that setup out either. And I mean, for me, that car, it was tight, and then as the run went on, it got tighter and tighter and tighter. And again, Bryce did a phenomenal job. He figured it out and was able to just roll the car wherever he wanted. But you know, we're happy with the P2. Again, he lapped the entire field, and so if anybody doesn't understand racing, like he went around and passed everybody twice basically. So I know he had a rough patch. He had an EOL at one point because we're coming to choose, and he ran through the middle of the racetrack, and he took ownership of that. And I haven't had a chance to go back and look at some replays with voice chat enabled and all that stuff to see if that was actually called out or not. But yeah, he went to the back, and he just drove himself back to the front and found his way back into victory lane. And so, again, he did what he had to do. Pretty much solidifies he probably moves on to the next round if he shows up for round two. And man, again, hot streak. Once you're winning and you're winning like that, it feels like nothing can stop you right now. And he's doing that. He's proven what he's worth, and he's proven the type of driver and the skill set that he has. And so, yeah, for our day, we just kind of managed. We had a long green flag run at the end of the race, the second half of the race, and we didn't have any cautions. So the first half was kind of chaotic. People in the back wrecking a lot, and I felt like it was okay. It wasn't the best, right? It's short track. It's in the playoffs. You know, you're gonna take more than you are gonna give when the stakes are raised a little bit higher for a race like that. And so yeah, we did what we had to do to come P2, and then to see Mark and I mean Gary, that's phenomenal. You know, a road course ringer comes in and finishing fourth. That's great. He's already our rookie of the year, right? Now he's trying to get momentum to go lock himself into the next round of the playoffs. And I know he's one of those drivers that are just right on the cusp of making it to the next round. And having that fourth place finish, that should boost his ego tremendous. And hopefully that momentum can ride here this week into Dover.
Yeah, and you look at Gary's growth, I think, throughout the season. It's been, when we've taken a look at this driver, we know the known commodity, which is road course racing. And then obviously the bigger question was, okay, well how's he going to go out here and perform on those ovals and try to manage the car well, try to set things up for longer runs, whereas road course, every corner is different. You have to learn to give and take at every different corner. Whereas for these bigger tracks, it's more of a gauging your entire lap, giving and taking over a run. And Donaldson has really grown in his racecraft. We've talked about it all season, Ricky, though. The thing we were concerned about him even making the playoffs is racing harder at that midway break that awards points, because we have analyzed his stage racing and how he's able to not accumulate stage points. We've gone back to that and have said, hey, look, like, this is something he can improve on. And I think if he turns up the wick here in the playoffs and continues to grow in that regard, watch this guy to be a Final Four contender if he indeed continues to race at Friday Night Fuel.
Yeah, for sure, because that team's, again, hot streak. All four of those guys could win a race, and I'm praying that this will never happen. If Bryce wrecks out, you got Chafin, Moutre, and Donaldson that could easily come out and win a race. That's just how good they are. That team just puts in the work, and in order to be the best, you got to beat the best, and those guys are the best right now in this league. And so, again, they practice, right? When the set drops, those guys put in the laps, and kudos to them for finding the time on a busy schedule with work and all that stuff to try to make sure they get that practice time in, and that's a credit to what they do over there. That's in their habits. That's what they do to get better, and they've shown the strength of what it takes to practice. So when you practice, yeah, those results will happen week in and week out. There's no discussions, there's no debates about it. That's the results that happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I want to see those guys if they do decide to still race with us. I'd love to see them, because that's how we are, Zach. In order to be the best, and we've said it, in order to be the best, you got to beat the best. And so if those guys decide they want to come give it a shot again, let's go. I want to beat Bryce. Everybody in this league probably wants to beat Bryce, and I'm probably not the only one. I know there's some people probably in chat that have something to say too, right? But at this point, those guys are sitting over there like The Rock saying, "Come on, bring it. I want you guys to bring the smoke." So, yeah, we'll see what happens this next race.
I know the last little bit in the run at Bristol, I had some damage, and I was hoping for another caution to continue working on it. And I got about halfway through the run and figured, all right, well, I'm going to really short pit the field here, and I'm going to take a fast repair, get my tires, and make up as much ground as humanly possible. And let me tell you, for like 20 laps, I was like Superman. I was passing everybody out there. And I finally caught up to Bryce, and I finally passed him. I was like, woo, good to know it takes like 45 lap fresher tires for me to actually do this. But yeah, it felt good to whiz on by him and everybody else for that matter for that short period of time. But yeah, Bristol was a race that had a little bit of everything, but you come to expect that at a track that has so much history behind it. And we're going to talk about another track that can also deal with some tempers, just simply because of how it's shaped and how demanding it can be on its drivers in just a little bit with Dover. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's talk about the Friday Night Fuel State of the Union. This is going to be a segment where we talk to you about what's going on with Friday Night Fuel. We articulate why we don't in part have a points graphic for you tonight, and we're going to try to set the stage as best as we can for our viewers what to expect for the weeks to come here with what we know, right? And nothing more, right? We're not trying to make stories, and we're not trying to hope against hope here, but we do want to make people know what is going on to the best of our ability with the state of the league itself. So, Ricky, I'm going to hand this over to you as an admin of this league who is in the know to talk to the viewers out there over the State of the Union.
Yeah, just going to try to be as cordial as I can, and not try to I'm just going to choose my words wisely for right now. So we did have some stuff that happened over last Friday that kind of boiled over after the race. Unfortunately, the guys at ALR decided to not partake in the league anymore, and we won't get into the details of what that is, but they have decided to step away for the time being. With that being said, I'm deeming this season as a failure as an admin group. As a guy who sits at the head of the table with a partner of mine who is John Gutekunst, I'm deeming this season as a failure. And I have nobody but to blame but me. It's not John's fault. I'm very hard on myself when it comes to stuff like this. I know this is supposed to be a hobby and it's not a job, but at the end of the day, I'm going to take full responsibility and accountability of why this thing is not successful the way that we thought it would be this season. With that in mind, we do have some changes coming up if we decide to do a season 3. I have already started the process of making the schedule for that. I have showed it to multiple admins already who are still a part of this thing. And so those guys are excited to see that schedule. I think we need to hit a complete Control Alt Delete and try to reset this thing to make sure this thing gets back on the right path to. And I'm not saying no admin did wrong. I'm just. This is what it is. This is just how I feel and how I dream this thing of kind of going forward, right? So we're just gonna hit a reset button. We're gonna wipe the computer clean. We're gonna do some stuff in the off season to hopefully get this thing right again, like I said, and I think we can get back on track. 100% do. So one of the things we'll just meet with the admin group as soon as the season ends and kind of discuss some things. One of the things is what I want to do is just have votes on certain things. I think that's probably the best way to go about this. Again, I'll have meetings as the season goes on into the playoffs. We'll hold meetings and make sure this thing does get right. And I know I'll keep repeating myself, but that's kind of where we sit right now. Again, it's not good news, right? But it's not the worst of news, and at least in my opinion. So the good news is I'm hoping to have a season 3. I really do. Really, I'm really seeing it as a glass half full type thing, not half empty. But I really do believe that we're gonna have a season 3. And we'll just kind of go from there. The custom sets, would love to have that back. If Till, you're still watching, would love to have that as we make this announcement. Would love to have more drivers, have more time to recruit. I felt like this season we kind of rushed everything to put it together with the 6-week not recruitment, but the 6 weeks Xfinity and truck. And you feel like 6 weeks is long enough. We just got to be more prepared. We got to be more organized. We got to have a little bit more structure of some of the feedback that I got. And then at the end of the day, too, we got to be consistent with what we do. If this is what it is, this is what we do. If that's what it is, that's what we do, right? So we tried the no rule book this season. I believe we're going to try to bring that back. I don't know. I just got to discuss it with some people and talk with them. And first and foremost, I just got to get with John at the end of the day. I just got to figure out what we want to do and where both of our mindsets are. Do we even want to continue to do this? And I'm not saying that we wouldn't do it, right? But we just got to get our minds right. And for right now, after the thing that happened on Friday, I just feel like everybody's mind is not in the right spot, trying to make decisions and whatnot. And I promise to the viewers and the drivers that are watching this stream, like, we are going to strive to make this a better league. So if you just hang in there for the rest of the season with us, we only have a couple races left. There's process changes and there's some policies that we're going to change and all that stuff. So hopefully we're on the right step going forward after the season.
Yeah, well said. I think that for any organization, right, that is an upstart that's trying to get their feet off the ground, communication's the key to pretty much any effective leadership, and that's what this group is trying to do, is somebody who's on the outside looking in and seeing the effort that's being made. So I appreciate the effort. I appreciate the honesty. This is you can't fix things when you pretend there's nothing wrong. And we've seen plenty of leagues across this platform that just continue in, well, let's just say self-destructive behavior and just pretend like everything's fine. And that's not the way to grow a league. That's not the way to make friendships and build a community. Those are the kinds of things we want to be doing around here. So appreciate the effort. And for the rest of us who are participants, we'll give you patience and try to grant you as much understanding as we can during this time of change. So in the meantime, I think we can all agree that as long as Zach Woods wins 1 point throughout the rest of the year, it might fix everything. So I'm just throwing that idea out there for the admins to chew on. So let's continue on with something a little more light, right? We're moving off of the State of the Union. Now let's talk about a pit stop for a little while. This is the part of the show where we take a break from talking about everything Friday Night Fuel, and we focus on something else. And typically it tends to be motorsport, but we got some big news here with Cole Pern, and then we also have some big news with Dale Earnhardt Jr. in real life NASCAR, and that's where I want to start, Ricky. I want to, hey Brett, I see you guys in chat. Keep on chatting it up. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on these topics that we're going to talk about for our pit stop tonight. The first announcement would be Junior Motorsports has finally, after forever and a day of begging and pleading and trying and harping, they are finally entering in to the NASCAR Cup Series. It's just for one race, and with the help of Chris Stapleton and Travelers Whiskey, this team is able to field a entry for the Daytona 500 with Xfinity Series champion now Justin Allgaier driving this number 40 Chevrolet. It will be in part through Hendrick Motorsports that this gets done, but all in all, the badge will read Junior Motorsports, as this is a groundbreaking day for Junior Nation, as they've been waiting forever for Dale Jr. to make the plunge. He's always said he's going to do it when it's financially possible, when it's financially making sense, and I guess with the sponsorship help, the stars aligned for Junior to do this one-off at Daytona. So, Ricky, what are your thoughts fielding the number 40 at Daytona with Justin Allgaier?
Yeah, I'm ecstatic for Dale Jr., especially with growing up a Dale Jr. fan. I mean, you see the flag behind me. That's a senior flag, right? And growing up watching Dale Jr., I saw his first Busch win here. I saw his first Cup win at Texas, and so Junior has always been my favorite driver. So to see him dabble back into the Cup Series, coming back as an owner, that's just going to do wonders for the sports. And it's also probably going to open some pocketbooks with all the merchandise that's probably going to be sold. And had a chance to see the paint. I think the paint's awesome. The chrome number, and they're going to run the 40 since they really can't run an 8 or they can't run the 88 either, because that's going to be Van Gisbergen's number next year. And then, 8 is with Kyle Busch. So it's unfortunate they can't run those numbers. But to see a Junior Motorsports car with Dale Earnhardt Jr. as an owner back in the Cup Series, even though it's partnered with Hendrick Motorsports, Hendrick has 5 cars now technically in this field. So now anything could happen, especially at a Daytona track that depends on drafting and depends on helping others and partners and all that stuff. Look to see those 5 drivers probably hook up and try to make their way to the front. But at the end of the day, I hope Allgaier just makes it on speed. I don't want to see him have to race his way in on Thursday night, which hopefully we're not doing a podcast episode, because if we are, it's going to be like I'm watching the TV the whole time.
Hey, we can do both. We can do both.
But very, very ecstatic to see that Junior is making his way back to the Cup Series as an owner. That's pretty cool. I thought the Bud 8 coming back in the late model was cool, and now him making this announcement, hopefully they can make some noise and hopefully field a full-time team in 26 going forward.
Back in the early 2000s, Richard Childress was presented with a conundrum because he landed a primary sponsor that was going to change how he was going to operate his Cup Series team. With young driver Clint Boyer at the helm, he wondered how he was going to juxtapose branding with a popular, alcoholic drink, Jack Daniels, and his ride, and he knew he wanted the car to be black, but he wanted the number to be synonymous with the sponsor, and so the Black 07 was born, and him and Casey Mears, Boyer speaking, and Casey Mears later piloted that ride. Under the same vein, Junior Motorsports is choosing the number 40 for this ride. It is the blend that Chris Stapleton uses to make Travelers Whiskey. If you look on the hood, it says number 40 blend on it, and it is the trial number in which Stapleton landed to create his popular whiskey blend. So now you know the significance to
Wow.
number
Okay.
40. It is it historically, this isn't the first time that somebody has chosen a number based on sponsorship. It's pretty rare, but hey, we get it here with the number 40 Chevrolet. What do you think of Allgaier? I know there was, when this announcement came out, as it was sort of teased to the public, people put two and two together pretty quickly that, hey, this could be the Daytona 500 announcement. Let's speculate about a driver. What do you think of this being sort of a continuation, a celebration of Allgaier's Xfinity Championship? We know Junior and Allgaier have a very close relationship, and Allgaier was able to spot for Kyle Larson in the Coca-Cola Coca-Cola 600. Yeah, that was the day Larson pulled the double, and he performed very well in Hendrick equipment, learned how to navigate this brand new car to him over the course of the race, piloted that to a 13th place finish before the rain came, and now this guy gets another shot in a cup ride. When you take his name, though, to some of the names that were being floated around there, you go, I understand why that name was picked, but there definitely were other options out there for Junior.
Right, and I was gonna touch on that too, and you kind of got the punch out. He had an opportunity in late May to run that car at Charlotte for the Coca-Cola 600, which is NASCAR's longest race of the year. Unfortunately, they had a rain delay at Indy, which prevented Kyle from showing up to Charlotte on time to pull off the double. And so that's another reason why he's doing it again this year, because he wants an opportunity to run all 1,100 miles. But they put Allgaier in the car. And I specifically remember listening to the radio that day, and I was going between Bowman, because everybody knows I like the 48, and I was going to Allgaier to hear what the feedback was between him and Cliff Daniels, who's the crew chief of that car. And Cliff does just a really good job of the dialogue with him and his driver, whoever it is at the time. Yeah, he was able to pilot it to a 13th place finish. I remember one time Allgaier came over the radio and just said, once Larson gets in this car, he's going to the front. And I know Allgaier was cracking the top 10. That car was starting to finally move forward after starting in the back. You got to think that he started shotgun on the field because they had the driver swap. They had to get everything new in that car with the foam and the seating and the placement and all that stuff. Started shotgun and just worked his way up to the front. And when it was all said and done, Larson got there, was supposed to get in the car. Unfortunately, we didn't see that. As fans, we all believed that the track was dry and was able to go back racing, even though it was super late. Nobody had work the next day because it was Memorial Day, so why not just continue on into the night? But that's a different discussion. But Allgaier did a fantastic job that night. He proved he deserves to be in a race car with that equipment. And I think he's deserving to get in that ride. Again, you mentioned there's other drivers that could have been picked. Allgaier is the defending Xfinity Series champion. He proved that he can win races in the Xfinity Series. He's proven that he can make Final Fours in the Xfinity Series. Now, I know the competition just rises to the top once you go to the Cup side, but he's proven he belongs. And I think with this car, the way that it is in the next-gen era, anybody can win a race. If they're telling me this thing is equal as everybody says it is, he's able to get in a car today and go compete with Hendrick equipment. I know he can. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do at Daytona, what speed they bring to the racetrack for qualifying, what they do during the dual races. You know, that's something that I bet is going to be magnified just because it has an association with Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Yeah, and he's already said he's going to be there every step of the way, trying to put in his memory bank, you know, rolling the car off the hauler, putting it in the garage, and he's going to be very involved. So if you're planning on venturing down to Daytona, you're more than likely, if you have the opportunity, you're probably going to bump into Dale Jr. He's going to be there all the time. See, David Mayo really approves of the driver choice. I do too. I think it's a really good choice. There was one question as this off-season continued, and that was, where will Martin Truex Jr. wind up driving? He said before he retired that he has every intention on driving the Daytona 500 into his retirement, and the popular choice was, well, he could go race for his buddy Denny Hamlin over at 2311. And that, for some reason, has not happened. It was announced yesterday that Martin Truex Jr. will be piloting the number 56, a familiar number if you are familiar with MTJ history, with Cole Pern being his crew chief, which is another familiar name if you're interested in MTJ history, piloted by a race organization that they themselves are making their Cup Series debut. Tricon Garage is making their Cup Series debut with an experienced veteran who's hungry for the glories of Daytona. What do you think about this pairing, as there were so many opportunities as the season ended for him to arguably land in better equipment, and now he winds up going to Tricon? I'm not quite sure how successful this pairing is going to wind up being.
Yeah, it was certainly odd, especially when you see the announcement. I was able to see it on Twitter, or I guess X now. I'm still going to call it Twitter, no matter what. So it was very interesting to see that. I didn't see the announcement on the crew chief, so that's kind of news to me. But to see Truex back in the 56, that's pretty cool. But you have to wonder, Joe Gibbs is probably going to give him some equipment. I mean, they have to, if they want to see Martin just be successful, and what Martin has meant to Joe Gibbs Racing over the past couple of years with being in the 19, taking over for Carl Edwards. He was already in Joe Gibbs' equipment when he was at Furniture Row Racing. So, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all if they do back that ride for that one race. You know, it's a one-off. We probably not going to see the 56 run a lot this season. If it is, it's going to be your Daytonas, your Talladegas, and kind of your important races throughout the year, right? So, yeah, that's very interesting. But to see Cole Pern, him paired up with Cole Pern, that's pretty cool. It kind of brings back a lot of history that those two have, going back to Furniture Row, then going over to Joe Gibbs. And so I think Martin has a shot. If he's in Joe Gibbs' equipment, he's going to have a shot, especially with it being such a crapshoot race and a wild card race that we don't know what could happen in these things. So as long as he makes it on speed, same with Allgaier, has to make it on speed, I believe, because you don't want to have to race in on Thursday, because anything could happen Thursday. We saw last year with Ryan Blaney how hard he hit going off of turn number 4. Kind of almost a Dale Earnhardt-esque wreck, and that was unfortunate with how hard he hit that wall. But you don't want to do that. You don't want to have to play catch up, because you're trying to fix the car, not fix it, but trying to make it right handling. Even though handling's not really an issue at Daytona Talladega, you don't want to be stuck with where you're at when it comes to qualifying or where you start for the duel.
Yeah, and I honestly, Ricky, I have more confidence that the Allgaier JRM ride has enough raw speed to get into this contest than a Tricon Garage. I they are going to get backing from JGR in order to make this happen, and I assume the limiting factor from getting that Martin Truex Jr., Dale Earnhardt Jr. reunion was Toyota. And as the Toyota options lingered throughout the offseason, you were basically left with two options: run a Legacy Motor Club ride with Jimmy Johnson, and, well, that or depend on this new team, Tricon Garage, that has very limited experience in any series of NASCAR. They were able to field a team last season in a lower division series, but nothing like this. And now you have MTJ in a Toyota, but I'm thinking speed here will come at a cost. This organization does not have the resources of a Junior Motorsports, even though Junior Motorsports is an Xfinity Series juggernaut. They are certainly well equipped to go to Daytona with some raw speed. My confidence in Tricon Garage is very, very low. So you make the argument about the cars being equal, but the teams and the resources available, yeah, MTJ is going to elevate that, right? But there's only so much you can do for a brand new team.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. I believe the raw speed probably as a startup team. I just, you don't know. I mean, a couple of years ago, we saw Floyd Mayweather get into the NASCAR business, and I mean, they weren't fast when it came to
The money
qualifying.
team.
Um, you know, and until brings something up, like how does the charters work? How does that stuff work? Do they just show up and try to get in on speed, and then
Yep.
if they get in on speed, do you even show up for the duel because you know you're locked in?
Yep.
Like there's so many factors that play into this thing that how do you make the Daytona 500 at the end of the day? We know there's going to be more than 36 cars that try to attempt to make this thing. We know it. It's the biggest race of the year. It's the Super Bowl of NASCAR. And
41
they
confirmed right now.
so 41 drivers, right? So we all know 5 drivers are going home.
Well,
And of those 5, who?
that's oh Ricky. Oh, that no. 41 drivers are confirmed right now, and there are 6 more seats that have yet to be announced. This is going to be the toughest fill in race, race your way in Daytona 500 as we have seen in quite a long time. They are estimating 48, 49 cars showing up to Daytona. So to answer Teal's question, yes, they are going to enter in as unchartered teams. That's there's no more charters to go around, so they will enter as unchartered teams, and so they'll go to Daytona with what they got. Taking a look here as well with Teal. Teal also makes a great point about some rule changes, and man, this is a long pit stop, but I think it's worth talking about. NASCAR's come out with some crazy new rule changes with this new season. The DVP clock is no more. You have a certain amount of time on pit road to try to take care of your car, but if you don't have that opportunity within that amount of time, you have to wheel the car to the garage. But all drivers can repair damaged cars and then refield them, which I think is a net positive. But another thing that is, well, mind-boggling is in the past there was something called the Champions Provisional in NASCAR, and that basically meant the Terry Labanis of the world could drive a wheelbarrow around Daytona, and he would be guaranteed a spot. And there were times in the late 2000s he did indeed do that. He was guaranteed a spot in the field no matter how fast his car was because he was a champion. There's a new charter of sorts, a new guaranteed spot being allowed for drivers who are making special appearances into the sport. And with the announcement of Helio Castroneves joining Trackhouse for his Daytona 500 debut, NASCAR has seemingly made a rule just for Castroneves. Drivers who have a world-renowned influence on the global sport of motorsport are guaranteed a spot if approved by the board of directors at NASCAR. Ricky, what do you think about this quasi-charter for people randomly coming in? They don't even have to get in on speed. You're automatically guaranteed a spot.
Yeah, that's not fair to the competition, in my opinion. Somebody like a Justin Allgaier who has all the NASCAR credentials. You know, what if Daniel Hemrick decides to come back? Why is he not guaranteed? So, because and that gives other guys. What if Lewis Hamilton tomorrow decides he wants to run the Daytona 500? Is he guaranteed a spot now? Like, you open the door for so many things that could go wrong, and now with Elio guaranteed a spot. Who says somebody else? What if Verstappen wanted to come and do the Daytona 500? Is he also guaranteed a spot? What if somebody from the MotoGP side wanted to come do it? Are they guaranteed a spot now? So, it's just gonna open so many can of worms, and it's not gonna go well for NASCAR. And then what happens when they vote no? Well, you voted that guy. Why didn't you vote this guy? You know, you voted this girl. Why didn't you vote that girl? You know, it's not good for the sport. It's not healthy. I think that they need to come up with like top 30 are guaranteed a spot, and everything below that it's up for grabs, or the top 25 at least, and the rest are up for grabs, right? If they're going to do 36, 38 cars, they got to have a threshold of what the guaranteed spots are. And now you're giving a guy a guaranteed spot and a guy that probably ran the whole season last year doesn't make the race, now he's already one race behind because he didn't get to run the Daytona 500, right? So there's so many things
Well,
that can go wrong in this, and we can go on and on and on what could go wrong. That's just what we do as humans. We always think about the negative stuff instead of the positive. But again, how many can of worms are you gonna open here? How many excuses you want from me, Zach, of how this thing could not play right?
yeah, and this isn't a speed thing. This is a charter thing. This
Yeah,
dilutes the value of charters. You take a look at what Trackhouse is doing with Project 91. They specifically said that this ride is guaranteed for people around the world to dip their toes into NASCAR. They brought in road ringers from other racing disciplines to come in and test the waters of NASCAR. And I think that's a good thing. We saw last year with 2311. Juan Pablo Montoya comes back and
right.
he's able to drive his car. He's probably getting approved for this charter. But specifically talking about Trackhouse, I think this is extremely dangerous for charters because Trackhouse has a car right now that is made specifically to fulfill this charter agreement, right? Right now it's Helio Castroneves. It could be anybody at any given time, and Trackhouse is guaranteed as long as they get, a prestigious person that wants to dip their toes in
Right.
NASCAR for a week. It acts just like a charter. The payouts are a little different, right? Because it's still technically an unchartered car, but they're in the show, and that's where I have a huge problem with this. I think it gives a huge advantage to specifically Trackhouse, who was very honest. And look, they dip their toes in motocross and moto, all of motorcycle racing. You have there's so many things that Trackhouse is
Right.
involved in. It's a brand. I understand that, and Justin Marks has a vision for that team that's very different from any other NASCAR team. But they have said that this car is made for the people that want to fulfill this charter. That's an extra guaranteed source of revenue for this team that otherwise would have to race their way in on speed. And I totally agree. I think that takes away from the Justin Allgaiers of the world that are on these one-offs, that are trying to take advantage of opportunities for a ride. Well, now that's just one less slot to get into
Right.
the show.
Right. Right. You hit it there, and Brett's here. If the provisional is used, they don't receive any prize money, and only used if he doesn't make it on time or the duel. Brett, we're gonna work on our spelling. Usually, so I'm gonna give a little secret, Zach. I'm at work all the time, and I get emails, and if the sentence is all wrong or if like grammar's misplaced, I'll just stop reading it. So Brett, you're lucky I continue to read that because I probably would have stopped right there, and he doesn't make it on time or the duel. So it's all good. We're just poking some fun at one of our teammates. That's what we do at Titletown. But going back to that, I'm with you. There's it's just going to be a huge mess. And NASCAR during the off season has already gone through a big mess with the court cases that happened with 2311 and the other team. I can't think it off the top of my head. Front Row
Front row.
Motorsports. They had the big charter debacle, right? Getting sued, or they sued NASCAR for whatever. I didn't really follow it. I just kind of
Still are.
other
NASCAR's a
other things.
monopoly.
Yeah, yeah. So they're fighting it still, and it's just a shame what this has gone from, like a really good sport from the 90s, 2000s, and I mean you can even say the 2010s were somewhat successful, right? But and now it's like World Wrestling Entertainment, WWE. It's just entertainment now at this point. Guys in fast cars that just make it a complete joke at times. We've seen it at road courses, Indy Road Course. That was a complete joke. Coda 2 years ago, that was a complete joke of cars wrecking in turn one. Like, when is enough, NASCAR? When is enough to say we need to get back to what we were back in the 90s and 2000s and even the 80s, right? Where it was just you show up to race, let's race. The 43 fastest cars get on the track and let's just go at it, right? So, um, don't mess with my Mississippi education. That was a good one, Brett. But that's just how it is, and NASCAR has to do something. And I'm gonna take a little shot. Like Ben Kennedy, what are you doing? What are you doing running NASCAR right now? Or Lisa Kennedy, what are you doing right now to make this thing successful? You're not. And we could be go on and on with our league on iRacing being a joke right now, but you're doing the stuff for real where money, big money is involved, and you're making it a joke right now. Do something to fix it so we don't have all these loopholes. And I know she's not going to watch this, but it'd be pretty cool if she did. And hopefully I don't get an email tomorrow.
I don't know. Maybe I'll change the thumbnail to your face and she'll think it's a Cole Pern video. So, yeah, it's worth a shot. So
Worth a shot.
all right. Long pit stop. We had
Woo!
we had lug nuts falling off. We had the jackman get his toes run over. I mean that was whew, that was rough. We'll try again next time for a bit of a shorter stop, but it was worth talking about. Let's take a look into the future now as Friday Night Fuel gears up for Dover. Originally called Dover Downs, David P. Buxton decided he wanted to give Delaware a place where horses could wind up racing, and in the middle of construction, he had the bright idea to build a racetrack around it for motorsport. And, well, Dover was born. It wasn't without controversy, as many of these track history bits are, as at the midpoint of this construction business, it stopped because there was a strike among the steel workers who decided that it was too much of a demand to build what is now some of the more iconic stands and facilities in NASCAR. If you remember, Dover has the bridge that goes over the racetrack. Workers cited that the unsafe working conditions was a place of contention and also fair pay for these workers to complete such an enormous project in such a short amount of time. But eventually Dover was born, creating a 1 mile concrete oval where drivers are now tested to this day with especially tire wear on a different surface than the asphalt they are used to. Dover is a track notorious for chewing up tires and spitting it out. But not only is the track surface demanding, you have the banking of Dover that is iconic, as the wall just seems to get out and grab you at the exits of turns 2 and turns 4. Drivers are going to have to manage loose conditions off and throttle control if they want to claim Miles the Monster here this week at Dover. This is also an extremely important race for the history of Friday Night Fuel, as these drivers gear up for an elimination race here for the round of 12. Drivers will be eliminated, and you will have a field of 8 playoff drivers moving forward for the next 3 races. Ricky, let's talk about Dover for a little while. What are your thoughts going into this race?
Man, this place, it's almost, it's not a Darlington, right? It's not going to chew tire up. Another concrete surface, but it will step out and bite you. The corners I'm looking at for drivers that are tricky this week will be the exit of turn number 2 and the exit of turn number 4. Both corners kind of lift up as you exit the corner, kind of upsetting the car. And so if you come off the corner wrong of 2 and 4 and you're going to smack the wall, like it's going to self-clean you and take you right back down the racetrack. A little bit of banking on the straightaways, right? We have the big, massive banking in the corners, but the way that the straightaways are set up, you know, you slap it, you're going straight down. That's just, and then you're going to smack that wall as well. There's just not a lot of room at Dover, and I know Jimmy Johnson had a great save a couple years ago in qualifying. Probably a decade ago in qualifying, right? He did the loop-de-loop all the way down the front stretch, kept his foot in it, and didn't hit anything. But those are two things that I'm looking at to see, you know, where our trouble matters may be. Another thing I'm going to be looking at is green flag pit stops. This pit road, you're probably going 170 mile an hour going into turn number 3, and that pit entry comes at you like that. It's almost like Bristol, where we saw a couple drivers last week make mistakes. If you do not want to make a mistake here, because not only is it's not half a mile now, it's a full mile. You got to go back around. You better hope you have enough gas to get back to the entrance of pit road. You got to go from 170 mile an hour all the way down to 35. That's a big gap, and it's probably the biggest gap we'll see on the season as far as pit road speed to race speed, right? Or race speed down to pit road speed. So there's two things or I guess three things that I'm technically looking at as far as a driver who that could possibly tame Miles the Monster and get themselves into victory lane and possibly move on to the next round. Um, Hopefully we get our points graphics here pretty soon. I know John's he's working on it, and we get that. And now we know exactly who's moving on to the next round and see what those guys can do in the round of 8. And then once we get to the round of 8, I mean the mistakes got to be minimal for those guys trying to move on to that next round. And we'll talk about that next week. But yeah, those are some of the key factors we're going to look for this week, and hopefully one of us in our team can hopefully get it done.
Yeah, and I think that it needs to be stated the pressure that these points drivers are under now when it comes to an elimination race. We've both been a part of championship chases before. I'm not obviously here for Friday Night Fuel after missing the first quarter of the year with computer issues, but you're still in it, and we both have experience with these kind of cutoff races. These things sort of just mean more. Can you explain to the people out there what goes through an iRacer's mind when it comes to elimination races where this is it, you have to perform?
Yeah, you got to show up. From the day, not the day, well, from the time the session is open, like your mind has to be locked in. And I know this thing is a simulation, and we all again treat this as hobbies. And we said it on previous episodes, like this is our softball. We have friends that play recreational sports, adult recreational sports. Well, this is our adult recreational sport, and we choose to do this every Friday night. You want to do good. You want to be competitive. You want to come out on top and say, I'm the one that won the championship or race or whatever that stuff. You just have bragging rights. The pressure's, it's big. You don't want to make those mistakes. A mistake here costs you 2 laps, and now instead of doing what the strategy you wanted to do going in, now you got to revert and try to figure out, okay, how am I going to get am I going to get my lap back the hard way? Are 2 cautions going to fall? Am I even the first car a lap down? Like there's a lot of things that go through a driver's minds once you do make that mistake, and you just got to go. For us, we're just not going to think. We're just going to go out and we're going to treat it like a basketball game. When you're playing free, loose, and letting things fly and the ball's going in, like that's when it's fun. And so for us, you can't think. You just got to go out there and just you have fun with it at the end of the day. And if you're having fun, good things happen. And I know when it's not all fun, you can have a terrible time. Why am I here? And you come up with all the excuses in the world and thoughts run through your head like, why am I here? Why am I doing this? I'm just gonna sell all my equipment and I don't want to do this anymore. And no, you can't have that mindset. So you're gonna come in, try to do the best of your ability, and if the cards are flipped and you win the jackpot, great. If you don't, great. We're going to move on with life, and we're not going to dwell on, oh, man, I didn't make the next round. Some people will just forget about it the next day and because they have lives outside of this. So I know I kind of went on another rant, but, hey, it is what it is.
All right. Well, we're at the point of the show where I make a prediction about this week's race. It is one that it's kind of hard to make, right? We talked about the sort of let's just say fluid state that the league is in right now. A lot of the very fast guys may or may not be coming this week, and we still have a lot of really talented drivers that are left in the field in order to duke it out here regardless. So I'm going to pick a guy that I have picked on the show before, and I have to be honest, Ricky. This individual, last time I picked him, he let me down. It was it was quite an embarrassing moment for me. Maybe not for him, but for me. And
I think I know where this is going.
I think that this could be a great shot at redemption. You take a look at last week when it comes to Bristol. and throttle management, making sure you manage your brakes as well, is also sort of a carryover from Bristol to Dover. He finished up in the top 5 last week. I'm going to give him a shot at redemption this week. I'm picking Spencer Teal to win here at Dover. Don't let me down. Drive fast, be better, and, do your job. And I think that this could be the week where it all comes together for Spence, and I like the momentum that he carries from Bristol. So that's what is encouraging to see here. The playoffs are all about momentum building. I really think that he's got some decent shot to come out here and really compete for the win.
Yeah, drive better. Copy. Got it. That's what he says in the chat. So, hey, he's the guy that makes our sets. If anybody is gonna know the set this week, it's gonna be him. And he's already got a leg up on the field. Another solid pick. He's been consistent when he's shown up. He's been running in the top 10, and last week in the top 5, and probably before that he was in the top 5 as well. But he's trying to play spoiler. There's a lot of people that are still in this, 12 drivers that are in this playoff mix, and if Spencer Till can cause some ruckus, that's the driver that could probably do it and steal one from everybody. So I like that pick. I think if Till can make I don't make the sets. Yeah, okay. Almost said something I almost should not have said. So we're gonna keep that for the after show. So anybody tuning in, just go to Netflix. We'll do the after show, and we'll go
we're on Netflix. So. Oh, God. we got that Cold Burn money. We're going to Netflix.
Yeah, we got Cold Burn money. But yeah, I think Till, that's a solid pick again. Going back to him, that's a solid pick. He's a great driver. He's patient when he needs to be patient, and he's aggressive when he needs to be aggressive. And I know early in the run, if you're faster than him, he'll just let you go.
Yep.
And then there's certain points of the race where if it's coming down to it, he's gonna lean on your door, and
yep.
and he's gonna race you hard, but he's gonna race you clean. And that's just the type of person that he is. So hopefully Till can get it done tomorrow night. I know there's probably 17 other drivers that have another thinking at it. But yeah, let's see what we got tomorrow night at Dover and see who comes out on top.
And if Teal doesn't win, I approve of his prediction. Zach wins on fuel mileage because, well, that's the only way Zach Woods wins. So we really excited to talk to you this week. We had a big show this week. We're also a week out of being rusty. So thank you for bearing with us for this long show. Had a lot to cover, and now we set our sights on this elimination race. If you are interested in taking a look at what Friday Night Fuel is all about, tune in to Snake Bitten Gaming. This is exclusively on Facebook Live, so go find them, and you will find access tomorrow night for Friday Night Fuel as these drivers duke it out for this playoff race here at Dover. For my partner, Ricky Gonzalez, my name is Zach Woods, and you're all fueled up and ready to go. So we'll talk to you again here real soon.